Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Light Sports Ramble. I am Troy Otradovic, as always, joined with Evan Watallison. Evan is going old school, Light Sports Ramble, in the car today with us. So hopefully you drive safe while you're rambling today, Evan. But we have a great episode.
Oh, don't worry.
That's good. The weather was terrible here this morning. I had actually sent out a tip this morning on Twitter on how to drive in the snow. It actually something not to do in the snow.
I thought you were supposed to ride your brake in the snow.
Yeah, you saw that, didn't you? I'll tell you.
Yeah, I thought you were supposed to ride your brake. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Well, apparently people in Pennsylvania didn't know that this morning. I'm sitting there going crazy. It might have been the crazy lady in the studio, because I really said, crazy lady, you are going to cause an accident.
Crazy lady got to you.
Yeah, I tell you, she has got to me ever since that day when all that stuff went on. So now with that said, I'm going to hold my breath about running the studio today. But today, Evan, we got a great episode. We're going to continue our series of grading the Green Bay Packers in the offseason. Real excited about today. We're going to talk about wide receivers and tight ends. You know, I went through, did some research, and, you know, this unit... Crap about what?
I almost saw an accident. Just almost saw an accident.
Oh, jeez. Man, good karma going your way, bud. Good karma. Because now we're going to talk good stuff, Packer wide receivers. The thing about this unit, wide receivers, tight ends together, is when I did the research and when we previewed and recapped throughout the year, the one thing is this unit had to survive with a quarterback shuffle. They had to do it with Rodgers, with Wallace, with Tolzien, with Flynn. And so I think when I look...
shuffle along the positions with injuries, too. The wide receiver, tight end positions, they had their injuries as well.
Exactly. A big injury to Randall Cobb. Big injury to Jermichael Finley. So when I looked at
Jones was hobbled all year.
Yeah, he was hobbled, you know, and maybe good for us that his production went down a little bit. Since he's a free agent.
Broken ribs in the playoffs.
So we will definitely talk about that. And at the end, like we did in the first segment, we'll talk about the key free agents, talk about who we think should come back, if they can come back, and how we might move forward from 2013 into 2014. But with that said, Evan, there are 5 receivers that we've got to grade out today. And we have actually 4 tight ends. So we'll spend some time. It'll be a great episode. Got to start with Mr. Reliable, Jordy Nelson. You know, I believe he is Aaron Rodgers' security guy. When I look at the stats, 85 receptions, 1,314 yards, 8 touchdowns. He had, I think, one of the key numbers in here, Evan, when I looked at the stats and I did the research. Of his 85 receptions, 60 of them were for first down. And of the 80, well, he had 3 drops. I believe his target number was about 120. He had 3 drops. It was a 2.4% of the passes thrown his way were dropped. And he only had 1 penalty throughout the whole year, which was an illegal formation penalty, which very well, I can't recall when it was, could have been with the quarterback shuffle and not being familiar with what was going on. So I just think Jordy Nelson has put himself into the upper tier of receivers. Now, I'm not going to put him in with the greats, but I believe Jordy Nelson is a reliable receiver that should be mentioned in the top tier of receivers out there because of what he brings to the table and putting up those numbers with 4 different quarterbacks. So I'll just throw my grade out first. I give Jordy Nelson an A for the season because I think he did it with 4 quarterbacks. He was consistent. And the thing is, it seemed like he disappeared for a while in the middle of the season with Tolzien and Flynn, and he still put up 85 catches for 1,300 yards. I give Jordy an A on the season. How did you look at his performance this year?
Well, I'm going to give a quick spoiler alert for the grading for this entire series. There's only two people that I feel deserve an A, and Jordy's one of them. He was outstanding. He blocked well on the perimeter. He, security blanket for Rogers. Him and, Flynn was trying to find him a little bit when Flynn finally became the starter, and he's able to get 85 catches for, you said 1,100 yards?
13, 14.
With 13, those numbers for that is incredible because he didn't know who was going to be his quarterback week in and week out. Could it be Rodgers? Could it not be Rodgers? But he just did the ultimate professional, just did his thing. And, unfortunately, he's a free agent at the end of next season. So if he continues, he might price his way out of Green Bay.
Yeah, good thing at least we have him for next year. He might be one of the guys I know.
Re-sign him now.
Well, and I'm hoping that we get the extension done. As I was doing the research and with the free agents, currently we're $18 million under the cap, I believe, $18 million to play with. But
best with, I think we have 16 unrestricted free agents right now.
Yeah, we have a ton, and it's going to be interesting to see. But I do hope they get an extension done. And I want to preface what you said. I'm like you, Evan. I don't hand out an A grade for being above average if I don't believe that you should get that grade. An A player to me is that player that you need to have on the field and a player that really is in that upper echelon of their profession at their position. And that doesn't mean they're the best, or doesn't mean they should be mentioned with the best. That's how I look at a performance. That puts them in that upper echelon of their position. And so I'm like you. Getting an A with me is very difficult. So we both agree on Jordy Nelson. He is the guy that we really need to have in Green Bay, and I think Rodgers will push for him to stay. Let's move down then. The next person on the list, Randall Cobb, who missed a majority of the season with that broken leg. He started on a tear. He was going to be the go-to guy this year, and then he had that horrific broken leg. Where are you going to go? Well, I'll give you the stats with Randall Cobb. In the time that he played, 46 catches, 433 yards, 4 touchdowns. However, the stat that stood out to me is he averaged 72 yards per game, which was second on the team, of course, to Jordy Nelson. And so his drop percentage was only 2.1%, only dropped 1 pass. So I'm not giving my grade based on overall statistical numbers when I get to my grade. I'm going to turn it over to you, Evan. Just kind of recap what you saw with Randall Cobb when he was there and how you're going to grade out Randall Cobb.
It's very hard to give him a grade, with that injury thrown in there, because who knows what he would have done over the course of a full season. Would he have kept up the pace that he was at when he got hurt? Or, what would have happened? And, looking at him, I'll give him a B+. I can't quite give him the A. Him missing a lot of time. And, like I did with Rodgers' injury, I did kind of hold the injury against him a little bit because we didn't see him for like 10 or 11 games. So, it's hard to really grade him properly. But I'll give him a B+. He was well on his way to an A+ before the injury, but I'll give him a B+ for the year.
And this is where you and I, when we look at the grading, do a little bit different. I totally wiped the injury out, and I only looked at his impact on the field when he was playing. And so when I look at the grade, I know that's part of it. Most people will say, well, because of the injury like you did, and I respect that. When I look at his performance, though, I'm going to give Randall Cobb an A for the time on the field, because when he's on the field, he is a difference maker. And every game that he was on the field for the Packers this year, when he was targeted, he made a difference. Without Randall Cobb, we probably don't win against the Bears. Maybe we do because maybe we get the first down. But the awareness he had to run it up and the awareness that Rodgers had to get him the ball, those are the plays that I see Randall Cobb always making with Green Bay. And so when I look at the actual performance, his time on the field, the time spent on the field for Randall Cobb, I give him an A. going with you where you're going, had I brought that in, then yeah, maybe into the B range like you did. So I have no problem with that. I mean, he's just a guy that has to be on the field, and when he was on the field, he made plays for us. So I'm real impressed with him coming back, and glad that he's going to be able to come back and be very healthy for us next year. I look for big things in 2014 from Randall Cobb. The next receiver, and the guy that I really thought should have stepped up when Cobb got hurt, Evan, was James Jones. And he is a free agent this year. He was in the free agent year of his contract. I know he was hobbled with nagging injuries all year long. He ended the year 59 catches, 817 yards. Did have 3 drops, 2.4%, just like Jordy Nelson. The thing with Jones was the unit as a whole only had 2 fumbles this year, and both of them were James Jones, and only one was lost. I just thought I'd bring that stat up because I did look at it. Not that it plays into anything in the grading, but when you look at his overall production numbers, the number that went down dramatically was touchdowns, and it went down to 3, and we may be able to contribute that to the quarterback shuffle because, like Nelson, he didn't know who the quarterback was going to be week in and week out, but his touchdown number went way down to 3. But how did you grade out Mr. Jones?
I'd give him a C plus, B minus range, somewhere in there. He disappointed me quite a bit. He had a monster year last season. He led the league in touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. He was a monster last year, a big threat in the red zone, and that disappeared this year. He was not a threat at all in the red zone. Numbers dropped, and I'm haunted by the image of him dropping 2 or 3 balls in that San Francisco game that would have made the difference in the game. Especially one of them would have been a touchdown because he dropped it in the end zone. So, keeping those in my head, I can't give him above a B minus. So, like I said, it's in the C plus B minus range.
And I should state this: the statistics I'm giving do not include the playoff game. So, for the season, he had 3 drops, but like you said, he had key drop in San Francisco. I'm with you. I give him a C, flat out C. And the reason I gave him a C, and it's not even based on production numbers. It's not even based on touchdowns going down. The thing that would disappoint me, like I said, I mentioned it earlier. When Cobb went down, Jones needed to step up. Now, granted, I know he was nagged with some injuries, as was that whole roster. The thing I saw with Jones this year, and you can chime in how you would like to on this, was it just me, or did Jones not create any separation this year? Every time the ball was by him, he was blanketed. Now, maybe the injuries had something to do with that, but that wasn't the James Jones I was used to seeing. The guy that would have some separation and time his jumps just correctly to make the catches. And you know the catches I'm talking about. But I saw no separation all year. Maybe he didn't want to play his way to
I think that knee bugged him.
And maybe it did. Again, I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to play his way to a multi-million-dollar contract. I don't know. I just didn't see any separation. And you and I both know at the wide receiver position, you got to get separation. And so that's why I give him a C. I give him a C because I didn't see him, 1, step up, and 2, create the necessary separation that he needed to have to be successful this year, no matter who the quarterback was. The one guy that probably surprised a lot of people, and a name that nobody probably knew coming into the season, Evan, was Jarrett Boykin. So he's the next person on the list. I mean, Packer fans did, but anybody in the NFL probably didn't really know who Jarrett Boykin was. Respectable numbers on the year. 49 catches, 681 yards, only 2 drops. How do you grade out Mr. Boykin?
Well, I'm going to take I think both of the drops were in that Baltimore game, if I'm not mistaken, when after Cobb got hurt. So for my grading, I'm going to take that game and throw it out the window. Because he wasn't quite ready to take on that role from not having any reps in practice at it. But when he got reps in practice, and I caught it in our pre-show game with the Browns, that Boykin was going to have a huge game, and he did. And then I said the following week he was going to have a big game, and he did. What I see in Boykin is a sure-handed receiver. He's a big receiver. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3", and he's sure-handed, and he runs very good routes. And grading him out this year, I would give him a B. I was very impressed with what I saw, and he can take a huge jump next season, possibly.
I'm right on board with you, bud. I give him a solid B and wavering on the B+ range. I am excited about what Rodgers and Boykin can do with Boykin being inserted into the lineup, because we'll get into this later. I don't see James Jones coming back, and I think that opens the door for Boykin, and I think Boykin played his way into that. And I think Boykin is the one that's going to make the decision for the Packers, a rather easy one, because he's only going to get better. He has such a great upside. Like you said, he has the size. He created some separation. And if I have any beef with Jarrett Boykin, it's getting consistent to create that separation. A man of that size, if he can really get down how to get off the line when they're playing the bump coverage and create that separation, I think that he can be very dangerous. I see something very special in Jarrett Boykin, and it is nice that he's on our team. So I think there's nothing but an upside with him. I think he does have to learn the offense a little bit better. I think he's got to get a little bit more crisp in his route running. But the kid is still young, and he's got such a great upside that I gave him a B, and I was wavering on a B+ grade, because I think he brings something to the table. And I'm almost positive Mr. Rodgers is really going to enjoy throwing the ball to him next year. I think, and I
think so too.
I can go out on the show right now in the grading show and say that I think Boykin will be the surprise of next year when you start looking at the stat sheet every day, because he's got.
He's my guy. Don't take my guy from me.
He's got some talent, so he's not going to be a no-name anymore once defenses start scouting the 2014 Packers. So I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table next year. And the last receiver that got some limited playing time, and I don't know if you had him on your radar to grade, but I did, and that was Miles White. He got in for some plays, had some opportunities with the injuries, but Miles White had a modest 9 catches, 66 yards, 1 drop, and with the limited targets, it equated to an 8.3 drop percentage. How'd you think Miles White played, bud?
Give him an incomplete. I didn't see enough of him to really, be able to grade him. He didn't spend a lot of time on the active roster, and I think he ended the year on the IR, if I'm not mistaken. I need to see more to be able to grade him. I don't think it's fair to give him an F or a D, because he's playing in a role that he wasn't quite ready to play in. He was supposed to be one of these developed guys. That's why they put him on the practice squad, was to develop him. And he got thrust into a role before he was ready. So I don't think it's fair to give him a D or an F. And he didn't do anything to warrant any higher than that. So I got to give him an incomplete.
Yeah, I gave him an incomplete. He gets no grade for the reason you said. He got thrust into a role that he shouldn't have been in. If I was going to give him a grade, had he been on the roster all year, based on his performance when he was in there, it wouldn't have been favorable. He looked confused.
No.
They gave him routes, simple routes, but he wasn't ready to be on what I'll call the big roster yet.
No.
But he did get thrust into the role, and that's why I gave him the benefit of the doubt, saying, this guy, I had wavered that I was going to grade him, and I, like you, said, you know what, verdict's still out on the man. He is a developmental player, so it's not my place, I think, to give him a grade based on him in that role. So I'm with you there. Incomplete, maybe another OTA and another training camp. maybe we'll see something else. I'm sure there's going to be some stiff competition at wide receiver next year. We'll see if Miles White is on the roster next year. Let's move into the tight end unit. When the season began, really the name that everybody knew was Jermichael Finley. Going into the last year, a contract year like James Jones, Jermichael Finley, season-ending injury, neck injury, that could possibly be career-ending. I know he says that he doesn't want it to be, but you and I both know this type of injury, this is a very delicate injury, and it's all going to depend on his recovery and all of those things. So there's a lot of question marks surrounding Jermichael Finley moving forward. But up to that point, 25 catches, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was actually having, at the point, I know he had an early season concussion, but before the injury and up to that injury, I thought that he was starting to regain some form and starting to put together a solid year. Then the injury happened. But where are you going with Jermichael Finley? How are you going to grade him out?
For Finley, I'll give him a B-. And, he was on his way to a monster year, and he was finally starting to become a red zone target. If he would have been a more substantial red zone target, then maybe I would grade him a little higher. But, I wish we could have saw what he would have done over 16 games, because I don't believe he recorded I don't think he had a drop credited to him, and if it did, it was only, I think, 1. So I'll give him a B-. And like you, I don't see him being back in Green Bay, because if they didn't clear Nick Collins, I don't see how they cleared Jermichael Finley.
Yeah, exactly. And just to go back, since I did look up all the drops, he was credited with 1 drop during his time playing this year. So, but like you said, I had mentioned, he was getting off to really getting his footing before that injury. I gave him a B+, Evan. I thought he was doing really well at the time of the injury. I know he had an early season concussion, which limited him a little bit, but I really thought that when he got injured, he was really starting to get into his groove and starting to play really well. And it was a shame that Finley went down. And then Cobb, the injuries we had, you look at the 3 we've already talked about with only 2, 4 units, the Rodgers, the Cobb, the Finley. Holy cow, you would think our offense would have struggled mightily. But we had talked about the offensive numbers. They still went up. And that'll lead us into the guy that took Jermichael Finley's place, who was Andrew Corliss, who stepped in, had modest numbers, 32 catches, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns. As I told you, I did look at a number of stats, and I'll throw this stat out before I let you take over about your evaluation of Andrew Corliss. 3 penalties at the tight end position, 2 for holding. The other was an illegal downfield on a kick. But I wanted to bring that up because in my grading, it's going to be part of how I graded him out when it comes to something along those lines. But how did you think Andrew Corliss played this year, Evan?
I'll give him a C-. I know it's probably unfair because he's just starting to get his groove back from that horrific knee injury that he had. But one of the things he was doing so well his rookie year and up to that point when he got hurt was his blocking. And that's another reason why I downgraded Finley a bit was his blocking. But Corliss, his blocking was subpar this year. I was not impressed with his run blocking at all.
Are you being nice today?
There were moments in the game that he would just completely disappear.
Are you being nice today? It was downright horrific at times.
I think?
No, I'm talking about his run blocking. Yeah. I'm talking about it.
Oh, well.
I'm just saying.
I was trying to be somewhat nice, but subpar, horrific, still bad, either way you look at it. So his blocking was horrible.
You're usually the guy that's a little more straightforward than I am. It was horrific at times, and yeah, I'm on pace with you there. I gave him a B-. So I graded him out a little bit better than you because I thought as the season progressed that I thought that he fit into the offense a lot better. I think he is really starting to get comfortable at the end of the year. But that run blocking, it was horrific at times. Now, there's a lot of things that can go into that, and as I look at the time, there's not enough time to get into that. But, I gave him a B-. He is a free agent. I'm not sure if he did enough to get other teams to sniff and warrant a look, but we'll find out. Because I did want to get to a guy, and I'll see how you're going to do this. We had two other guys, and Ryan Taylor I gave incomplete. How were you with Ryan Taylor? Do you have anything to add with Ryan Taylor?
Give him a D.
Yeah, I gave him an incomplete. I didn't see too much of him. You're giving him a D.
Well, he played. The reason why I'm going to give him a D is he played. He was supposed. I was expecting someone to step up when Finley got hurt. They needed him to step it up, and he didn't. He was not existent on offense and special teams. He's getting pushing and shoving matches all the time.
Yeah, his number 6 for 30, one drop, 11%. I wasn't too impressed with the play of Ryan.
That drop was key too, if I'm not mistaken. That would have won for a touchdown.
But the guy I want to talk about, because this is a guy that I'm excited about seeing next year, as we just go under 4 minutes, is Brandon Bostic. The guy had 7 catches,
I'll make it easy for you. I'm an incomplete with him. I didn't see enough, but I am excited about his promise.
Well, I'm incomplete on the grade too. I just wanted to talk about him because with Finley and possibly Corliss both being gone, Bostic could be our starting tight end next year. And so I'm excited about it because 7 catches, 120 yards. He averaged 17 yards a catch as a tight end. I think he's got some great physical tools, but I didn't see enough of the other things. I didn't see enough of the blocking. I didn't see enough of the route running. I know they sent him out wide and got a mismatch on cornerbacks and safeties. So I'm excited about how Mike McCarthy is going to incorporate him into the system next year because we had already mentioned, I don't think Finley's back. And so I'm not sure about the Corliss. But with that said, because I do want to get with just under 3 minutes to go, the 3 free agents in this unit, Evan, James Jones, Jermichael Finley, Andrew Corliss. Of those 3, are any of them back next year in your mind?
I think Andrew Corliss will be back. I think he didn't do enough to really show other teams that he can offer. I think he'll be back. I think James Jones, they'll let test the market, and I think he's gone, and I don't know if they even cleared Jermichael Finley, and because he's not good. Well, even if that, he's not going to give them a hometown discount. So, but I think they end up drafting both a receiver and a tight end in this year's draft.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about that in our draft preview. So, I'm with you on James Jones. I had mentioned it when we talked about Boykin. I think Boykin made Green Bay's decision very easy. Let him go test the market, because I don't think they're not going to want to overpay for somebody that didn't go out and didn't step up and didn't put up the numbers. Because we may talk about the quarterback shuffle all we want to, but did we not say that this unit put up the most yards they had in a long time? So
yeah,
the offense,
really nice numbers overall.
Yeah, so when you look at it, my problem with James Jones, like I said, was the separation. I'm okay with him testing the market because I like what Boykin's going to bring.
90 seconds.
I agree. I think they're going to go out and they're going to draft a receiver. And then on the tight end side, I'm with you. I wish the best to Jermichael Finley. I hope his neck injury heals and he gets to play again. But I don't think he's back in the Packer organization. I don't think the Packers will.
I don't either. Not wanting a hometown discount.
No, I don't see him back in green and gold next year. Andrew Corliss, depending on the market for tight ends, he might get some looks, but I don't think he's going to break the bank. And so it just may be a comfort level that he is back in Green Bay. Like I said, I thought he was starting to play well at the end of the year. If he's back, great. I'm okay with that. If he goes and tests the free agent market, okay, I'm okay with that too. So we'll see what happens there. But with that said, Bud, under a minute to go, anything you want to end the show with to the listeners?
Nope. Just, continued thank you for listening, and please tweet us, Facebook us, let us know what you want us to talk about tomorrow, and Twitter talk. So that's all I got to say.
And with that said, we'll see everybody at the next red light. Enjoy your evening. Be safe. We'll get at you tomorrow with Twitter talk. Like Evan said, tweet your topics, Facebook your topics.
10 seconds.
We'll definitely talk about them tomorrow. Enjoy.